All right, let's get to our next guest. This is a legendary musician, and out there with her own Riley Winn. We're gonna have this playing for you right now. It is joining us, Dweezil Zappa with Riley Winn. Let's see if we can get out there.
Thanks, Greg.
There we
Riley Winn here live with Dweezil Zappa in the Roseland Theater. We're here to ask him some questions. He's in town for tour in a master class. And so we have some questions for you, Dweezil. But first, we want to thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So the first one, 2018 is coming to a wrap. What have you been up to this last year? Can you kind of catch up our fans and our audience out there what you've been up to?
Well, I've been doing a lot of the music touring that we traditionally do, where I play my dad's music, but I've been making some of my own music. I've been working on some more orchestral music, which last year, around this time, we premiered some of it in Holland with a 100-piece orchestra, so I have some other stuff that I'm working on for 2019 and some other new music of my own, putting out some live albums and some new music that I'm currently writing.
So the orchestra, the 100-man orchestra, that's a little bit different than kind of what you usually do. What made you want to get more into that?
I've always been interested in it, but I didn't really ever see it as being something that I was going to do. But an orchestra in Holland approached me about doing some music specifically for the orchestra. So I said, well, I guess now's the perfect time. You know?
The opportunity presented itself, yeah. So this is the last day on the Choice Cuts tour. What has been your most memorable event, most memorable memory, I guess, of this tour?
Well, this tour has been special just because it's my favorite version of the band. The people that are in the band are all the best musicians that I've been able to put together since I started this 13 years ago.
Wow.
And so we have a lot of fun, and the songs are challenging in their own ways, but because the band plays so well together, there's everything's like a musical conversation. You know, we can kind of read each other's minds a bit in terms of where things are going to go when the improv stuff happens. So it's just been really fun on a musical level for that reason.
And it seems like that would make it a lot more intimate for your fans and your audience too, when you guys have that connection together.
I think it's definitely more of an appealing musical experience when it seems like the musicians are all listening to each other and able to communicate, you know. So it does translate to the audience and make it more interesting and memorable, I think.
That's really amazing. And so you've created a lot of music and produced a lot of music over your career. What has been your most maybe impactful or memorable piece you ever created?
Well, I'm still working on a piece that probably would fit that description. I started something back in the early 90s that's called What the Hell Was I Thinking? And it's
love it already.
it's a continuous piece of music that's best described as an audio movie, and it changes scenes every few seconds, really, and it's changing different styles and different environments. So, and it has a bunch of different guitar players on it. There's about 40 different well-known guitar players on it, and I'm still adding to it. But I haven't finished that thing yet. I've been working on it since the 90s. So I think that one will probably end up reaching the top slot, you know, when it's all finished. But I do have a DVD that's going to come out soon that has that I edited, and we did all the surround sound mixing, and that really is a special presentation. I mean, that's probably one of the best versions of surround sound that I've ever heard. It really, you know, my dad's music really lends itself to that.
Our audio editor is going to really love that you said that. Ryan, I know you're going to like that. So when you're on tour, you always, you're playing music, but you also have these master classes that you do, and I know you do them in select cities. So what can the people that go to those really expect to learn?
Well, I have a music camp that's called Dweezilla, and so when I do a guitar camp kind of lesson on the road, it's like these are the Dweezilla guitar classes, and really what I do is I try to give a lot of advice on the fast track to learning the guitar neck, and there's a few things that I do that sort of compartmentalize some of the complicated things and make it easier. Just because when something's really hard, like a long phrase, if you break it down into smaller chunks, it's much easier to learn how to master each separate thing. But then if you start really approaching everything on the guitar that way, it really helps you see things and connect things and have a strategy. So I have a simple way that I set it up, and it usually is something that people can take what they already know and double or triple or quadruple what they already know overnight, because there's some simple things that they can do to just restructure how they play.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. I like that approach of breaking it down, keeping it simple, just because it can be overwhelming when you're trying to learn something new and you just go at it like.
Well, for sure. On the guitar, though, there's one really simple secret, which is, it has 6 strings, and if you think of it as 3 sets of 2, the top 2, middle 2, and bottom 2, anything you can do on one set of strings, you can do on the other sets. So now suddenly, it's way less to think about, because there's only really about 5 shapes that your fingers naturally have to go in to make particular scales. So when you really break it down into the smallest things, you go, oh, I only have these 5 things, and I can do it on all these sets of strings, and now suddenly they all, it becomes visually apparent that way, and it's usually an eye-opener for people.
That's amazing. And so you are doing a masterclass here in Portland. What's your favorite thing about coming to Portland, or your favorite thing to do when you do come here?
Well, I honestly don't get out much when we're here, but a few times I know the band and crew have gone over to Voodoo Donuts, and one time they got I guess they offer something called a bucket of donuts.
Bucket of donuts? I haven't had that one.
It looks like a bucket of chum. So they came back with these buckets that were filled with donuts, and it just looked revolting. But
were they good?
They don't seem that good when they're all stuffed into a bucket, but it's memorable.
It's memorable. That's true. So when you're touring, what's kind of the one gadget you need to have when you're touring?
I need my equipment to work. That's it.
Just your
guitars, all that stuff. I don't really, need creature comfort type of stuff. Like, I'm not really a super gadget guy. I am when it comes to gear, to make specific sounds, but other than that.
Over the years, has technology really influenced the way you look at equipment? Like, how's that affected that?
Well, as far as guitar equipment goes, it's been simplified yet complicated at the same time. Because it used to be that if you wanted my dad actually always had a very complicated system. He used 3 amps and 2 DIs, and he was splitting his signal, and he was running it to all these different things, and it was like mountains of gear on stage. And if you wanted to do what he was doing, you had to have mountains of gear on stage. And for a while, that was the only way you could do it. But then it started to change a little bit, and there's digital ways to do some of the analog stuff, and that helped. So I'm able to do a lot of the sophisticated things with less equipment, but it still takes time to learn how to use it and program it and all that stuff.
Yeah, because, you're still accomplishing the same thing, but it's a different way of getting there. Yeah. So you said you're not too much into gadgets, but you do have a smartphone, I assume?
Yes.
Are you an Apple or an Android guy?
Well, I happen to have an Apple phone at the moment, but I really don't like the Apple products very much.
Why?
I particularly don't like that you have to have all of the weird little connector things.
The dongles?
Yeah,
everyone hits the dongle.
That's just the worst.
Well, it's a terrible name for that. What that is, too. It's like dongle. It's like, that doesn't sound good at all.
I just don't really care for that.
So, again, 2018 is coming to an end. We're in the holidays. What's your favorite holiday song?
I don't think I have one.
Oh,
I don't really listen to a lot of holiday music.
Okay, so kind of on the holiday theme, what's the best gift you've ever received during the holidays?
I don't care about like material things too much, so it's just always like heartfelt things from my wife or kids,
Hey, it's the thought that counts. It doesn't have to be material. It's how it makes you feel, which is awesome. So you have like a really cool job. You're a rock star. how would your friends describe what you do? Because it's different than the way like you would probably describe it.
I would think that they just think that what I do is more complicated than they would like for themselves. So they're like, better you than me.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So you're teaching these master classes, and you're an accomplished guitarist. What advice can you give to young musicians?
Well, you know, the biggest challenge is always finding the reason that you do what you do and staying true to that. And in that, finding your own voice, you know. So as a guitar player, there's a handful of guitar players that the world knows just by hearing a couple of notes. And when you think about how many billions of people play guitar, and then there's only a handful of people that
are recognizable
after just a couple of notes, you know, that's a big goal to try to reach. And when you're a young player, you're always emulating people, which is a great way to learn and everything, but sometimes it takes a while for you to find your own voice. And
for sure.
That's the case with a lot of people, but that's the process. And so I would say, you know, really try to focus on trying to find that, you know, the thing that keeps you inspired and makes you want to do it. That's the thing that's probably going to draw the people to want to listen to what you're doing.
Yep. No, that totally makes sense. So where can people follow your career some more and follow your music?
Just on my website, dweezilzappa.com. Pretty simple. And I mean, you know, they can check things out on Instagram and whatever. That's about the only social media thing that I do with any regularity. I can't stand Facebook and you know, all this other stuff. I mean, I have.
You're not alone.
Yeah, I have that stuff, but I just don't. I'm never on there.
Hey, no, that makes sense.
Well, hey, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Really appreciate it. You know, thank you so much. And back to you, Greg.